You ready, Tom? Morning, everyone. This is the January 15th, 2025 meeting of the Planning, Resource and Development Committee. Looks like all of our members are here, so we have a quorum. Approval of the minutes from December 18th, our last meeting. Motion. Monica moves. Is there a second? Gary seconds. Any discussion or revisions? Okay, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Minutes are approved. Public comments. I know we have at least one person who wants to do public comment. Tony? And then if there are anybody else after Tony, you can please come up to the front.
Good morning. Tony Christopherson, E9920, 630th Avenue, Elk Mound. I serve as the Elk Mound Town Chairman. On your agenda today, you're discussing the Dunn County Comprehensive Plan and Farmland Preservation Plan update. In your packet on page 15, it talks about having 4 meetings with the zone towns. Planning with 4 zone towns at each meeting. And on page 27 of your packet, regarding the variance request by Luke and Marissa Larson, we were referring question number 10. The referred land use for the subject property is designated as residential ag according to the Dunn County Comprehensive Plan. The applicant's future plan for the property is consistent with this plan. Town of Elk Mound is unzoned, and I'm assuming that the provider has made an oversight by not including the unzoned towns into the focus meetings, is to look at what's going on when you're going to be referencing that plan in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. Good point. We'll talk about that. Anyone else have any public comments at this point? Okay, so we have before we start, I want to make an announcement, and that's that I am pleased to announce, extremely pleased to announce that we have hired a new county zoning coordinator and planner, and Tammy Draxler is with us today. So welcome, Tammy. Tammy's worked several years for the department, and I'm really looking forward to having you in that position. I'm sure the committee is too. Okay. We had no public hearing today, so we'll go right into staff reports. Register of Deeds. Heather.
Good morning. For December, I guess business as usual. The tax bills were mailed out, so that generates a lot of questions for us. I was sworn in for the new term, which started the first Monday of January. And then I also included in this December report, yeah, right there, Tom. I included just to give you a kind of a little bit of a idea of these are the types of documents that we recorded in December, and then the numbers that are next to those that correlates with the number of documents that we recorded, so the number of affidavits. So I just thought I'd share that just to give you a little bit of an idea of the different types of documents that we record. That's all I have.
Any questions about Heather's report? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Environmental Services Departments.
Good morning. Thank you, Tom. Good morning, everyone. My report's up on the screen. Don't really have much to add. You can see where the land divisions have occurred in the last month, the totals there. Attended a couple, or in December, I attended 2 steering committee meetings related to the new ERP system, and then my financial report follows. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions for Mr. Carlson? Okay, thanks, Tom. Who's going to do Chase, here.
Well, as the former interim zoning administrator, I'm the one that helped prepare the report that's in the packet for today. So I guess if there's any questions there, um, I would just comment that it was easy for me to step into that role for the most part. The staff within P and Z division are excellent, and I didn't do any of this that's in this report. They all did, and they made it easy for me to kind of help facilitate, and I was basically approving payroll and doing check-ins. So, but with that, I guess if you have any questions that I can maybe try to answer, and obviously with the announcement with Tammy, and happy that she's with us, maybe she can provide any other
Yeah.
contact.
Any questions for Chase or Tammy? Okay, good enough.
And it's me again for the Land and Water Conservation Division. I will just call out that on the agenda today for the committee meeting, we talk about the conservation poster contest judging. With your, I guess, approval, I would just suggest that we do that at the end of the meeting.
Yep.
And all the posters are laid out in the back of the room. So,
Okay.
but we had a really good turnout this year, more posters than we've had in probably the last 5-6 years. So, I guess with that, if there's any other questions, be happy to try to answer.
Any questions for Chase? Okay.
Chase, are you still on the Red Cedar Watershed
Yes, I am.
board? You said it's going to be different this year. I'm curious.
Sure. So the traditional conference format that maybe we're all familiar with is you show up, you sit in a room, and you listen to a speaker, and you hope to learn new information. That will still be the case in like the morning sessions of the Red Cedar Watershed Conference, but the afternoon session is going to be more engaging. If you attended last year, there was one session that kind of helped try to seek input from the attendees to provide ideas of what the watershed should look like, what their impact, I guess, perspective was on the community that is affected by the watershed. This conference is going to build upon that. I'd like to not make the direct analogy, but certainly thinking about the comprehensive plan update and what goes into that sort of thing of seeking community engagement and involvement. That's what this conference is going to be focused on in the afternoon specifically. Looking for people to actually actively participate and have meaningful conversations about a variety of topics. So there'll be 4 different breakout sessions that are kind of tailored to certain topics. Those still need to be ironed out yet, but I hope that people are encouraged by that and continue to want to participate and get engaged. But it will be a little bit different than just sitting in a room and listening. So
The Lake Tanner conference that they got there, they're doing a lot of different things. They're gonna have like a carp contest, on that. So are they gonna have a prominent spot on the Red Cedar down there or not necessarily?
So two I guess leaders or members of the Lake District Board attend the Red Cedar Water Quality Partnership meetings on a regular basis. So they're involved in some of those decisions and activities that are associated with the larger TMDL watershed or the larger Red Cedar watershed. As far as the conference, that's always
Mhm.
they're not necessarily on the planning committee, but we certainly invite and hope that they participate in the process that the conference provides. So.
They got a lot of different plans, like, a sediment trap and a lot of everything. That's the things that we worked on here 4 or 5 years ago. We got them all listed where all the things were in that, so that's
Yep.
good.
Any other questions? Thanks, Chase. So I did put a few items on the agenda. I'd like to suggest that we move item 7B. Well, we're going to move item 6D to the end, as Chase said. And maybe to the end of the discussion today, we could move 7B. Since there are a number of people here to talk about the other topics, but I did ask Jim to, and I think because we're going to be talking about some variances today. Um, County Council has agreed to provide us with a bit of a presentation to clarify some of the discussions that we have with regard to decision making. So I'll turn it over to you, Jim.
Would you like to do 6C first or move that one? Susan is here with regional planning.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you'd like to move it, that's fine.
You sure?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Let's, yeah, we'll move that down then. Thank you, Chase. Go ahead, Jim. Yeah, you're up.
Right, thank you very much. Yeah, I took a look, a deep dive into the Wisconsin law regarding variances and Wisconsin statutes. You should have received an email yesterday regarding it. Wisconsin law 59694 part 7. There's two different types of variance requests you can make. One is a use variance request and the other is an area variance request. And each type should be treated very differently, quite frankly. Use variance, it's a very restrictive standard. Basically, no other possible use for the property. Example of that would be if I wanted to start an agricultural operation in a residential area. The courts in their decisions, they've noted the fact that that would obviously affect neighboring properties very badly. So if a request for a use variance were made, pretty strict standard. I honestly couldn't even think of a situation where this should be granted. Obviously, there must be some where they would be because they have it in the law. The other type of variance request is an area variance request. It is a, oh, there you go. It is a lower standard, quite frankly, where strict compliance with the zoning ordinance would unreasonably prevent a property owner from using the property owner's property for a permitted use. So they want to use it compliant with the zoning ordinance. However, in some other way, their request is outside of the zoning ordinance. The case I'm going to talk about in a second, put a high value on the fact that it's the property owner's property. Their request does not infringe on any other neighboring property's rights. So it put a high reliance on the fact that the property owner should be allowed to use it as they wish. One of the things that the court looked at in the case I'm going to talk about here is the fact that you should also keep an eye on the purposes stated in your zoning ordinance, which is 16.03. And I don't really want to read all these off, but it's obviously protect the environment, agricultural, you don't want to destroy agricultural land, provide for the health and safety, provide for the public interest, basically. You can kind of skip through these, put them briefly on the screen and so forth. But 1603 gives the purposes. So when you consider variance requests, I recommend you look at those and bear those in mind when you're making a decision one way or the other. The Wisconsin Supreme Court case, which is ruling here, Richard Zervogel versus Anne Maureen McGinney versus the Washington County Board of Adjustments. The factual basis is stated on there. They purchased what was meant to be a summer home in 1996. They're 26 feet away from the ordinary high water mark. In 2001, Washington County amended it to say you can't build within 50 feet of the high water mark. And in 2002, they wanted to semi-retire and just live at the property in which to add on 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms to it, and it was denied. And the Washington County Board used the standard of you have a reasonable use for it. They used the use standard, which was in their zoning ordinance. The court, and again, I put a ton of quotes in here, and I'm not going to necessarily read through them all. You all have those available for you. They understood that one size might not fit all in terms of zoning ordinance, and a zoning request or a variance request, excuse me, may be made, and the board or the committee could vary from the zoning ordinance in certain situations if it would unduly burden the property owner. Skip ahead to the next one. They reported the section of the ordinance or of the statute, excuse me, that discussed area variances. And if the terms of ordinance would not be, if it's not contrary to the public interest and due to the special circumstance of the person's property, it would result in undue hardship, certainly a committee could make a reasonable decision to grant the variance. One of the problems, go ahead and skip ahead. One of the problems with the statute is it doesn't give a definition for what undue hardship is. That's straight the statute. It doesn't state what it is. But the court gave some guidelines that you can use when you're making these decisions. It's based on unique to the property and not based on personal issues with the property owner. It can't be self-created, and you see that again and again. And they have the self-created part would, if you allowed people to create a zoning issue, it would encourage property owners to basically, let's say, build a building very close to a stream and then say, oh, I need a variance now. They're very strict about it can't be self-created. Your purpose is to judge the public interest versus the zoning ordinance and to make a decision which is reasonable. It can't be contrary to public interest, excuse me. And it still says the property owner has the burden of proof. You don't have to disprove that the variance is not reasonable. It is the property owner's burden of proof to explain why they deserve the variance. There's a number of different quotes that I put in there from the Supreme Court, the Wisconsin Supreme Court decision. I want to highlight a couple on the one on the next slide, in particular. And toward the end of the decision, it really empowers committees to make decisions and to use their reasonable discretion to decide whether it is an undue hardship on the property owner or whether what the request would be contrary to the public interest, damage agricultural rights or agricultural property, et cetera. The bottom line, you can skip to the last one. That's probably the best quote for you in terms of when you're making decisions. But if a variance request isn't due to something self-created, if it's not contrary to the purposes in the zoning ordinance and not contrary to public interest, and it's based on the unique conditions of the property, a variance can be granted. It can also be denied if the request is contrary to the public interest or contrary to the purposes in the zoning ordinance. I know I reeled through that fast. I was going to present this, and then I realized I made it too long, so I wasn't going to present it.
No, that's
And
good.
then Tom wanted me to present it, so then
I think
that's why it
more
was a
is better
last
than
minute
less,
addition.
but good.
More is
Good,
better.
yeah.
Any questions?
Any questions for Council? Monica?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm feeling a little fuzzy about the distinction between a use variance and an area variance. Can I give an example?
Sure.
So let's say somebody wanted to build an ADU, and it didn't meet the requirement of 300, being within 300 linear feet of the original property. So they have that request. Would that be an area or a use variance?
That would be an area variance. Use variance would be, I want to do, again, I want to open up a cattle, I want to open up a farm in a residential area. I want to do something contrary to what is allowed in the area as opposed to, I want to build something within 10 feet of a roadway or et cetera. And the way I viewed it after reading this is use variance may affect other neighboring properties, area variance would not.
Okay.
That's that's really basic, but that's kind of how I viewed it after reading the Supreme Court decision.
Okay, so like in general, for that case, like ADUs are something that could be built there, and so that's why we would consider that a
Yeah.
area variance.
If you decide that it is not contrary to the public interest or the purposes in there, you can make that decision.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim, did I hear you say at the outset that use variances should almost never be granted? Is that what you said?
Yes, and I don't know if you can go back to you have it up there right now. Use variance once you only be granted if the requester can
Right.
demonstrate that strict compliance with the zoning ordinance would leave the property owner with no other reasonable use of the property. And of course, if I own a residential property and I want to open a farm, you could say, well, you're using it as a residence already. There is a reasonable use of
Exactly.
the property.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Mike?
Thank you. I think you did a good job explaining it. So I'm looking back at the ones that we just did, and I don't remember how many different things. Are there 12 different things we're supposed to criteria? About 12.
Mhm.
And in the last one, 11 were met, and there was one that we had a question about. Now, looking at this, if we felt they met 11, but not the 12th one, we could still say, well, if it's still in the public interest, we can say we can grant that variance
That is correct. Can you go to the very last slide? I didn't get to this, but basically for the future, Tom and I've talked before, and we're going to talk again, to doing a slight revision. Really, it's only the last sentence in 16833C, if memory serves me, that the first sentence is fine. The second sentence, it muddles it and makes it seem like, wait, now we have a strict one. The Supreme Court case that I talked about, the Wisconsin Supreme Court was actually fairly critical of Washington County, saying that their zoning ordinance was contrary to state law. And so I don't know if, I don't believe ours is contrary to state law. I just think it's confusing. And so I plan on suggesting a revision to the ordinance to make it clear and probably distinguish use versus area variance. So you have that guidance and don't have to, be concerned that you're somehow violating the ordinance or the law, or et cetera.
Well, that certainly makes things easier in one respect, but in the other respect, it's a judgment call then. It's always going to be tough.
It is,
Yeah.
but as long as you, as long as you state the reasons why you're granting it or denying it, and again, that last quote from the Supreme Court case, it really gives you that discretion. It's your judgment.
Okay, any other questions?
It's very helpful, yeah.
Thanks a lot, Jim, for putting this together. I think, yeah, this is helpful. I think the area and use distinction, it really is helpful, I think. Well, we'll see.
Yes, we will.
I'm sorry, I haven't thought much about the order in the agenda. I put 7B on, mostly just for kind of just a general committee discussion. I wonder if, well, since we have people here dealing with the variances, I don't know, Susan, what's your timeline? You're fine? Some of these items are sort of set up for good discussion. And it seems like giving ourselves enough time for those without sort of requiring people who are here for a particular item to spend their whole morning here would make sense. So I'm wondering if it would be okay with the committee if we move on to section 8 and began dealing with the variance requests. Is that okay?
Sure, as long as it's okay with Susan.
Well, let's do that then. So, Mr. Carlson, the first 8A variance request.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Let me just get organized here. I'm gonna bring this will be the main focus of our discussion this morning. So what we have before us is a variance request. It's from Luke and Marissa Larson. Mr. Larson is here with us in the back of the room. The property address is N6328 830th Street, in Elk Mound. It's located in the southwest northeast of section 17. Looking at creating 2 new lots. Lot 1 will be roughly 1.5 acres. Everybody see this on the screen? I'll make it a hair bigger here. So lot 1 is the smaller lot, of course, 1.5 acres, and then the remainder would be roughly 19.33 acres. So the request this morning is for a variance allowing for a proposed lot to be bisected by an access easement. So some background information. Luke and his wife Marissa, like I said, own a piece of land in section 17, town of Elk Mound. There's roughly 21 acres there. It's currently unzoned. The property is severed by an existing driveway from 830th Street. The applicant would like to create 2 new lots as illustrated on the site plan up on the screen. So lot 1, there's an existing house on there right now, a well and a septic, all the necessary improvements. They plan to construct a new home and shop on lot 2, the balance of the property, which will be about 19.3 acres. So the applicant would like to retain ownership of everything, lot 1 and lot 2. A portion of the subject property has some steep slopes on, and there's a substantial overhead power line running along the south line of the property. So the existing driveway is coming in, serving lot 1, and they're proposing a 66-foot wide easement. The 66-foot width is a requirement, coming in from 830th Street, serving lot 1. That driveway has been in place for quite some time. So creating these 2 new lots is going to trigger Compliance with chapter 16, our county land division ordinance, both lots are under 20 acres. Section 16.46 sub 1 states in part, no lots or outlots created under the terms of this chapter shall be bisected by a public road or proposed private road or proposed access easement. So as we can see, lot 2, the larger lot, will be bisected by this proposed easement, which contains the existing driveway. Section 16.83, which Jim just referred to of the ordinance, allows for a variance request. And I'll just read that. Where strict application of the provisions of this chapter would impose undue hardship because of unique topographic or other conditions of the land involved, or other conditions predating adoption of this chapter, or to achieve consistency with a city or village extraterritorial ordinance, the committee may approve variances to any requirement of this chapter to the extent deemed just and proper, provided such variance shall not impair the intent and purpose of this chapter or be contrary to the Wisconsin statutes or Wisconsin administrative code. Lot there. So the analysis. If the variance is not approved, the Larson's property will still continue to be bisected by the existing driveway. Nothing's going to change. Approval of the variance, however, will allow the applicant to divide off the existing homestead and allow them to construct a new home and shop on the remainder of the property. The current driveway serving the property has been in place for quite some time and appears to adequately be serving its intended purpose. In order to comply with the requirements of Chapter 16, the access easement serving Lot 1 would need to be placed along the south line of Lot 2. So what that would entail, so in order not to bisect Lot 2, the easement would have to run here along the south line of it, be 66 feet wide. Right now, there's no driveway there. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a substantial overhead power line here. The steep slopes I mentioned that are on the property are also located in a portion of this area. So practically speaking, putting a new driveway in there would not be a good idea at all. But that's what it would take to comply with the ordinance. Another option is, and I'm going to bring up the next slide. So hopefully everybody can see this. This illustration looks very similar to the previous one, although now we have 3 lots. We have lot 1 here, lot 2, and lot 3. So this would be the common dividing line between lots 2 and 3. And now the access easement would be not bisecting any of the lots, but in fact to be running along the north line of the proposed lot 3. And now the Larsons would end up owning all 3 lots just to accomplish building a house. And then their shop is going to go on the other side. So the shop would be located on lot 2, the home would be located on lot 3, and all this is explained in their written brief that was provided in the application as well. So this is what it would take to comply with the ordinance, either create 3 lots or go back to the original plan and construct a brand new driveway in here in order to comply with the ordinance and provide an easement down there. So I'll get into the variance requirements. The first one, of course, is proving a hardship, right? So the use of the existing driveway it's been adequately serving the property for quite some time. It's certainly, the construction of that driveway predates Chapter 16. The steep topography along the south line of the parent parcel would make it impractical to construct a driveway so as not to sever the proposed lot 2. So that's one thing we have to look at. Does the committee feel that a true hardship exists that is not self-imposed? And then, of course, we have to look at all the purpose statements for Chapter 16. I don't intend to go through all those. They're in your packet. The only one I identified is item 8. It says to conserve lands with high agricultural value. So we define what high value ag land is, and it has to meet one or both requirements. It either has to be listed as farmland preservation plan certified, which this parcel is not, or it has to be designated as a class 1 or class 2 land capability classification according to NRCS. Chase has looked into that, and it does meet a class. There is some class 2 soils on here. However, none of those areas are being farmed right now. So just for complete transparency, it is considered high value ag land according to how we define it. Other than that, the last item is the variance shall not be contrary to the Wisconsin statutes or Wisconsin administrative code, and I don't believe it would be. So that's kind of the end of the analysis. I'll just go back into the packet. You can see that this is really what they want to do, a 2-lot CSM. According to the applicant, they've already spoken verbally with the town, and the town has given them verbal blessing to move forward with this. This was in their packet as well. You all should have had a chance to read this. I guess I'm not going to go through it again, but you can kind of see where they're planning to build their home on the south side and then the shop on the other side. So I think I've covered everything. Their application was in the packet. And as I mentioned, Mr. Larson is here if you have any questions of him. And if you have any questions of me, I'd be happy to answer them. I'll turn it back over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Any questions for Mr. Carlson? Mike?
Yeah, thank you. Tom, I can't remember. Is there any restriction on the number of homes or served by a common driveway? 4. Okay, and this will be 3 then. Well, isn't there a home right off the road there on a separate lot?
That has,
But it's not 4 anyway, so it doesn't matter.
correct. There's still some questions on that when the final map comes in. It appears that the neighbor to the north is also using this driveway. At least the driveway is right, not on their property. But that's something we'll deal with as we move forward with the survey. But yes, the answer is 4. You could serve a maximum of 4 residences with an access easement. Once you serve more than that, then you would have to turn it into a public road.
Monica?
I have some questions about access easements. I was trying to figure out where they're defined in our ordinance. Just for future reference, where is that in?
16.46, I believe.
Okay. I guess I don't need to dig into it right now, but what kinds of things are allowed on an access easement? Like, could they put up a split rail fence or some shrubs or flowers? Like, what can they do with that?
Okay, I need to digress. It's 16.43. Sorry
Okay.
on that.
Thank you. I'll update my notes.
God.
16.43 talks all about streets, public and private roads and access easements. So back to your other question, right, any newly proposed access easements cannot contain structures. So you may remember, we had a variance request. I forget the last name now. It was Town of Menominee. It was the last 2 we had at the meeting here. They were proposing an access easement that was narrower than 66 feet because they had some outbuildings that were going to be in there. They had no way to squeeze this easement between the existing structures. So the committee granted them a variance for a reduced width on that. So, but no new structure or no existing or planned structures are allowed within an access easement.
Thank you.
Responding to Monica's question though, would that, is a fence a structure? I,
I'll
not
read
that
the.
that's applicable here, but I was just curious.
Yeah, and I apologize. She did ask that and I missed that. Structure. So what do we have for a definition of structure? It's actually quite inclusive of a lot of things. I'll read it if you don't mind. So the way we define structures, anything constructed or erected, the use of which requires a location in or on the premises or any other attachment to something having a permanent location on the ground, which includes but is not limited to objects such as dwellings, retaining walls, towers, signs, factories, sheds and cabins, mobile homes, gas or liquid storage tanks, bridges, culverts, decks, satellite dishes, or swimming pools. Also included are items of personal property that may have been designed as transportable or as a vehicle, but stand in a seasonal or permanent location for storage or intermittent human habitation. Such incidental structures may include, but are not limited to, truck boxes or semi-trailers, truck campers, travel trailers, buses, or motorhomes.
Thank you.
So I would say a fence, when it's approved. Yes. I would say a fence is a structure.
Yeah.
It's got a
Sounds like it.
permanent location in the ground.
So just a quick, so when an easement a new easement is approved, does that include a agreement on provisions for maintenance and things like that?
One, it's serving 2 or more lots. Right.
So that could include a provision for landscaping or something too, if you need to.
I suppose.
which would not be a structure, but,
Well, it depends. Yeah, is it a retaining wall? Is it
well, no, I mean, like a shrub or a
shrubs
tree
or, yeah, ornamental tree or, yeah,
Mhm.
it's kind of that gray area, but I mean, I think we put it in there for the fact that we don't want somebody building a pole shed halfway into somebody's access easement or running an easement through an existing corner of a house or something. I mean, that's the whole purpose of an access easement is to provide access to the property and not impede the person's use of it. And that easement could change, the use of that easement could change over time. It's 66 feet wide and right now I'm only using maybe 12 feet of it. But pretty soon switched jobs and I started driving semi and I have to bring my semi home now and park it in the yard at night. And all of a sudden there's tree branches over the top or somebody has a garden in there and I need more than 6 or 8 feet to drive on, or I'm doing some farming. I need to bring a combine in there and now the building corner is into my easement and the only way to get in there now is to start trespassing because I can't stay within. It just has a potential for creating problems down the road if we have structures in an easement. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking through potential conflicts. I know that they are maintaining ownership interest, so that's fine for now, but maybe in 30 years, we might have two neighbors and they're not getting along. I could maybe imagine a situation where they put in shrubs or a flower bed lining it, right? To look nice, but then the person whose property is bisected, right? Maybe they have, well, whatever, on the other side of the house, a garden maybe, and they want to go through there with a wheelbarrow or whatever. And then they're mad because they have to tromp through the garden. The people with the garden are mad because their garden's getting messed up. Like, so in that kind of situation, how might that play out?
I think it has some legal implications. Yeah, I mean, I'm not an attorney. I can't give legal advice, but it's the old adage, everything is fine until it's not, right? And yeah, you can't assume neighbors are always going to get along or the same person's always going to own it. You know, in this case, I own lot 2, you own lot 1, and you and I get in a disagreement and you're driving right past my house every day and we're bitter enemies and there's nothing I can do about it. You've got an easement right through the middle of my property. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yeah, no, the point is that it's sticky, right?
It's very sticky.
Something that could happen.
Yeah.
But I suppose whoever buys that lot too, that's a risk that they would take on when they buy it.
hopefully. Okay, any other questions for Mr. Carlson? Mr. Larson, do you have any further comments or? You have to, I'm not sure I have to, if you do, I have to ask you up there. If you don't, that's fine.
Yeah, I guess I don't have
Yeah,
anything.
okay.
I think you explained
All right.
it pretty well, so.
We'll give you another chance after we
Okay.
beat this around a little bit. So, any further questions or discussion? We have a motion to approve or disapprove?
I'll make a motion to approve the variance as requested.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second, further discussion, if any. Okay. All in favor? Both say no. Okay, the variance is approved. Thank you. 8B, variance request from the town of Sheridan.
Okay, so I have this one up on the screen. Let me get down page 43. So this is the main sketch we'll be focusing on. So again, we have another variance request. This one is from Sandy Bigd, who lives in Ridgeland. The property address is N3722 County Road Double V in Ridgeland, located in the southwest of Section 12, Town of Sheridan. Sandy's looking at creating approximately a 6-acre parcel, the boundary of which is up on the screen here. She's looking for a variance to create this lot that exceeds the 4:1 depth to width ratio requirement in section 16.46 sub 2G of the county land division ordinance. So Mrs. Big currently owns approximately 73-acre tract of land. It's currently zoned as general ag. The property contains a residence and associated improvements. The applicant would like to divide the residence and those improvements from the remainder of the property as indicated on this sketch map. Portion of the new lot contains slopes of 20% or greater. And of course, the subdivision requires preparation of a certified survey map that has to meet all the requirements of Chapter 16. So as I had mentioned, 16.46 sub 2G states in part the depth of any lot shall not be greater than 4 times the lot width. The proposed new lot, outlined in red, exceeds that ratio requirement. So section 16.83 of the ordinance allows for a variance request. I'm not going to reread that again. I read it for the other one. So the analysis, the purpose of the depth to width ratio is to prevent the creation of long, narrow lots as well as the crowding of improvements along the narrow portion of the lot while leaving the land behind vacant and unserviceable. So as you can see, it's hard to see on the sketch here, but the improvements are already located near the back of the lot. They're in the trees here, but the house, the well, the septic, you can see the driveway here kind of runs into the shadow of the trees, but long, narrow driveway going back to the improvements here. So those improvements are already situated near the rear of the lot. It's highly unlikely that, somebody's going to construct a pole shed out here or something. They're certainly not going to put it in the driveway, and dealing with required zoning setbacks, it's just very unlikely any other improvements are going to be constructed out near the road. So approval of the variance would allow the applicant to divide and sell off the existing homestead from the balance of the property while maintaining ownership of their driveway. And that's very important for them, while also preserving the present agricultural use of the remaining property. If the variance is not approved, there are other options available to the applicant, just like Mr. Larson's request. So one of those is up on the screen here. So this is an option that would meet the 4:1. This would just barely meet it. So we are going back approximately a quarter of a mile, 1,320 feet. So if you do the math, this has to be roughly 330 feet average width. So this configuration would work. Here you can actually see the home and the improvements, the long driveway. Doing so results in much more acreage than what Mrs. Big would prefer or like, and it would also sever some of this ag field here. Roughly in half, according to her written brief. So this is an option. It's just not ideal for the applicant. Another option that I put together, and I've been working with Mrs. Big's surveyor, Ron Jasperson. So I should mention Mrs. Big is here, Sandy, and her surveyor, Ron Jasperson. They are in the back of the room. So if you have any questions of them later, but this is a sketch that I had worked on together with Mr. Jasperson. So her original idea was to follow this blue line right here, roughly come down and just include the driveway. That didn't meet the 4:1. So I guess reverse engineered, so to speak, figure out how much this line would have to move so we don't chew up some more farm ground. So this sketch here would just barely meet the 4:1, not exceed it. So this is a second option. It still ends up at about 9 acres, just like the other option I presented. So it's more land. Both of these options would work, but again, they're not ideal. So I just like to present, other options to let you know that, there are two ways to skin the cat, so to speak. So anyway, so we can reconfigure it in order to meet the 4:1. And again, that's not ideal. Another option, which hasn't been that was considered, I guess, is we could make a smaller lot back here, and then the driveway would become an access easement. So we could make a 2-acre lot back here that would easily meet the 4:1, but now the driveway wouldn't be owned by Sandy, and if she sold the property off, she'd have to retain an easement over that, which I agree isn't ideal. It's always nice if you can own your own driveway, but that would be a third option as well. So, and it seems like so many of these 4:1 depth to width issues that we're dealing with involve access. And that's something I think Jim and I need to look at and possibly work on some amendments to the ordinance and get some of this language cleared up, because that wasn't our intention with this, but it seems like that's becoming an issue. So it really comes down to, can you own your driveway, or does it have to be an easement in order to comply with the ordinance, or you need a variance in order to own your driveway? And it just seems like something is wrong there. So we are going to work on that, but for now, we're dealt the hand we have. So we'll get into the variance requirements. The first one again is, is there a hardship? Has the applicant proved a hardship? The driveway, dwelling, and related improvements have been in place for quite some time and certainly predate the adoption of Chapter 16. The hardship that is claimed by the applicant in the written brief is a loss of income that would result from dividing the existing farm field. And hopefully you've all had a chance to read that written brief and the explanation in there. Then we get into the purpose statements of Chapter 16. I'm not going to go through all those again. They were in the packet. I didn't see anything that would be contrary, in my opinion, to the purpose statements. Checks all the boxes. There was no high value ag land here. Some of the remainder of the property is, but what they're planning to divide off, none of that is high value ag land. And then the last one is the variance shall not be contrary to Wisconsin statutes or Wisconsin administrative code. And I don't believe that it is. So just make sure that I've covered every slide in the packet here. And I think that was it. So again, this is what they would like to do. A lot that doesn't meet the 4:1 depth to width, and they're asking for a variance to create that lot. Here's the written brief. Everything else seems to be in order. So that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'll turn it back over to you, Tom.
Any questions from the committee? Diane?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The alternatives 2 and 3 have both been described by you as not ideal. Could you elaborate a bit? They both seem pretty sensible to me.
When I say ideal, I mean they're not ideal to the applicant. That's not their plan. They didn't want to create that large of a, right now, what they're proposing is around 6 acres in order to comply, which would be this sketch or
Right. Or
this
the other
one. It would kick it up to, this one is 9. Shoot. Okay, hang on. I have to get that back again. Closed the wrong window. Yeah, so this is closer to 10, making it a complete rectangle.
And the third,
And the third one, this one here was about 9 acres. So between 9 and 10 acres it would take to comply with the ordinance. I don't have a problem with either one of these, but when I say ideal, that, it was discussed with the applicant and it was not ideal for them. I know this option here, it had to do with the, splitting up of that
Right.
farm field. I'm not quite sure why this one,
which makes a lot of sense to me.
this would include adding a little more wooded land to the
Uh-huh.
north. And perhaps the applicant or surveyor could speak to that. I'm not sure, but I just know these 2 options would work, or the third one, providing an access easement,
Right.
which in my mind isn't
No, agree.
ideal, but
Agree.
Could you go back to the first option, just to remind us?
this one, or what they're proposing.
The proposed option.
The proposed option is this. And you can actually see it here too, if you follow the blue line. So basically, bear with me, I'm trying to run two screens here. But this blue line is basically, their option. Can everybody see that blue line on there? This kind of really illustrates it nice, because it shows what they would really like to do is follow this blue line, include all the yellow. But that doesn't comply. In order to comply, they have to just push this up. I think it was 213 feet, if I remember right. This line had to get moved to the north. And again, it's all about average width. So this narrow width here gets prorated against the overall length,
Right.
as does this width. So, there's some formulas that are applied.
So how much,
Go ahead,
excuse me,
Gary.
how much, how wide is it on the narrow strip going in? That you would have to add to make it like legal? You know, as it goes in before it gets wider again,
Here, you're talking.
right?
Well, to go back this far, it'd be roughly 330 feet, which gets us back to, hang on. Bouncing between two different PDFs, but this here is how wide it would have to be.
Okay.
It's about 300, roughly 330 feet.
Mike,
Looking at the rectangular one you have up there right now, that splits the field, but that does not preclude renting the entire field. Would be my understanding. You mentioned that'd be a hardship. You can own part of the field and rent the part that you have.
And I'm not stating that.
Yeah, right, I got that, but
Yeah.
that was listed as a hardship.
Yeah, correct.
So that isn't. But I look at the purpose of this 4-to-1 ratio. And granting the variance seems like it satisfies the purpose of the 4-to-1 ratio, which you just mentioned has been a difficult area for us.
Mike, you said granting the requested variance.
Granting the requested variance, it meets the purpose of the 4-to-1. It seems to me. Well, this one seems, it's a viable possibility. But the other one, the requested variance seems reasonable too.
Any other questions? I tend to agree with Mike that the original request makes sense.
So how would you change it with like legal counsel? I mean, to make it more compliable? Because we're getting a lot of questions on that. I mean, how would you really like change it? So it would be more compliable.
We would simply delete that standard, strike it from the ordinance.
Okay,
It wouldn't be a standard anymore. We never had the standard in there until we did a complete rewrite of the ordinance. We added it because other counties had it, and we're finding that it's just creating some unintended consequences, some issues. So the best solution would be to just remove it.
Yeah, I think also in this case, the improvements are already in the back of the property. So one of the provisions of the ordinance was that to avoid having that happen. So here they are. This seems like to me, it feels like this makes the best use of the land, keeps the forest parcel intact, keeps the ag parcel intact. Improvements are already there, makes sense. Monica.
Yeah, I agree. I also think this makes sense. The little L-shaped configuration, yeah, that seems like a possibility, but I don't really see any advantage to going that way as opposed to granting this variance.
You want to make a motion or somebody?
I will. I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance as
Okay,
requested.
thank you. Is there a second? Supervisor Burke seconds. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Could we hear from the surveyor about alternative 3?
Sure. And you want to give us a,
Sorry, didn't turn my mic
update
on. I asked to hear from the surveyor.
name and address?
Ron Jasperson, Land Surveyor for Oth Consulting, 406 Technology Drive East here in Menominee.
Thank you.
One
Sure.
point I do want to make, if Tom, if you go back to option, the very first, or the rectangle shape. Okay, let's start here. So one thing, Mrs. Big brought to a point is that she wants to keep a physical access. Intent is eventually, she's got 2 sons to convey, one son this property, one son this property. Never say never. if the son sells this off to somebody else, the other son keeps this, they still have a physical access, again, along through the yard, to get back this back 40. I just kind of want to make that point. Go back to the rectangle shape. So if we went with this first option, the rectangle shape, you can kind of see, we push it right up against the woods. We want to keep that new line away from the woods again, so they can physically have an access to that back 40.
Okay, and respond to the next alternative? Yeah,
So with there, unless they get an easement across to get back to here, whoever owns this, would have to almost have to grant an easement to get back to there.
got it. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yep.
Any other questions? Comments? I'll call the question. All in favor, we have a motion to approve in a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. So the variance is granted. Thank you for coming today. And 8C, Tom.
Okay, give me just 1 second here to get reorganized. So, I had mentioned, a few months ago that we were gonna have a plat coming in the town of Sand Creek, so that's what we have before us this morning, is a preliminary plat. Let me get down and bring that up here. So this is the actual plat. I provided you all with a hard copy this morning. You should have, it's maybe a little easier to see that, in front of you than on the screen or what you received in the packet. I'm gonna leave this up for now. This just nicely illustrates with a photo, where things are situated. So again, this is a preliminary plat. It's called Sand Creek Hills subdivision. James Smith from Secluded Land Company is the applicant. His representative is here today. His name is Daniel Stockert. He's the gentleman in the back of the room with the stocking hat on there. So he's here representing Secluded Land Company, if you have any questions of him. So the plat was received on October 31st, and by statute, we have 90 days to review or take action on the plat. So that's coming up here on January 29th. So we need to take action today. Some background information. Secluded Land Company is proposing to develop a 17.65 acre parcel of land within the town of Sand Creek into a 6-lot residential subdivision. You can see the lots here. The underlying parcel that represents these is actually a certified survey map that was done and approved months ago. So they're taking a large lot of that CSM and now turning it into 6 lots. So, and the reason we're doing a plat is because they're exceeding, if you remember, you can do, you're allowed under the land division ordinance to do 4 lots per 40 in a 5-year period. If you want to exceed that, you can do it, but then you have to go through either the state platting process or the county platting process. These lots are large enough that they don't trigger a state plat. So this plat will be receiving no state review, just county review. So the property is located in the southwest of section 28 at the intersection of State Highway 64 and 810th Street. All 6 lots will have direct frontage along 810th Street. The state is not allowing any direct vehicular access from lot 11 to the state highway for obvious reasons. Property is currently unzoned with a minimum lot size of 1 acre required by Dunn County. The property is comprised mainly of wooded land, as you can see. There are some slopes of 20% and greater located on lots 14 and 15, which show up on the hard copy that you have in front of you there, the shaded areas. There are no mapped wetlands on the property. The preferred land use, according to the Dunn County Comprehensive Land Use Plan, is residential ag. All the lots are greater than 1.5 acres, which I mentioned exempts the plat from review by the state. The owner will be dedicating a portion of their property to the town to better accommodate the traveled portion of the existing roadway. So hopefully you can see that up here on the screen, but you can see the paving here of the road. You can see the section line, which is this dark solid yellow line. The two dash lines represent the edges of a 3-rod wide road, which is 49.5 feet. So you can see the traveled portion, the paving, if you will, is outside of the right of way. So the landowner has been working with the town and they're going to be dedicating a strip of land, which is represented by the west line of all these lots. The other dark or solid yellow line, this strip in here is going to be dedicated, everything from this line over to the section line. So it'll end up in a overall right of way width of 82.5 feet. So that's a good thing to take care of here through the planning process. It's very simple. There's offer and acceptance. So the developer is offering to dedicate that strip of land. The town by resolution will agree to accept the plat, and the transfer just happens the moment that plat is recorded. It's a seamless procedure. So it happens actually quite a bit with the platting process. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. One soil boring was completed on each of the 6 lots. Those borings have been reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Office, and the borings indicate all the lots will support either a conventional or a mound type septic system. The town of Sand Creek discussed the preliminary plat at their meeting on October 15th. I have a copy of their correspondence in here. The town took no action on the plat, and I need to explain this. So preliminary plats, according to state law, are not a requirement. They're only required if county ordinance or municipal ordinance requires them. So we, Dunn County, in our ordinance require preliminary plats. Town of Sand Creek does not have a land division ordinance. So when I talked with Mike Nelson, he was a little confused on everything. I had to explain that towns by state law are an approving authority with respect to subdivision plats, but only the final plat. Even if the town has no land division ordinance, they still have to approve the final plat. So I sent him some, state statute on that. So bottom line is they don't have a land division ordinance. They don't require a preliminary plat. They did meet, put it on their agenda, and they took no action, which is fine. The county land division ordinance says the committee needs input from the town a minimum of 15 days prior to us taking action. So that's why I had the town send me a statement. So this is information we received from the town. This is our input that's required in chapter 16. Chapter 16 doesn't say it has to be approved by the town. We just need input. As far as I'm concerned, we received input from the town. So does anybody have questions on that before I move on? The town will have to approve the final. For 2 reasons, right? They're an approving authority, so they have no choice. They have to take action on it. And there's going to be a dedicated road on here, so they have to sign off accepting. There has to be offer and acceptance. The developer is offering it through their owner certificate of dedication. The town has to approve the plat accepting it. So you will see town action on this at the final level within the next couple months. So I just wanted to make that point clear. The town of Sand Creek, so we went through that. Preliminary plat review was conducted by a team consisting of members of the Dunn County Environmental Services Department, or Highway Department, Land Information Office, Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, and the DOT. So at the end of the day, when everybody got together, we reviewed everything. We feel that it meets all the necessary requirements, certainly meets Dunn County ordinances and complies with state statute. So recommendation at this point is to approve the preliminary plat. Just make sure that I covered everything in the packet. So this is a copy of the plat that you have in front of you. Like I said, it meets all the standards. They paid their fees, they filled out an application. At this point, I don't have anything to add. I mentioned Mr. Stockard is here if you have any questions of him. This plat is unique in some respects. We don't have any engineered road plans. So many of our plats, if you remember, have proposed streets. So we have engineered road plans, we have retention ponds, stormwater considerations. We don't have that with this just because all of the lots front on a existing public road. So, yeah, I don't have anything to add, but I'll turn it back over to you, Tom, if there's any questions of the committee.
Does the committee have questions? Gary?
Has there been any talk with, the state about Highway 64, all of a sudden there's a lot more traffic coming down that road than what there was previously?
So the state is an objecting authority and this plat was sent to them. So there's been a series of certified survey maps done along here, 3 different CSMs. I don't have them up on the screen, but the state was in, let me just back up here. The state was involved in everything that's been done out here up to this point, including the preliminary plat. So what happened is just to the east of here, they granted 2 driveways for shared access. So there's 4 lots on the north side of 64 that are all coming off one common access point. There's 4 lots to the east, or I'm sorry, 3 lots to the east of this. I gotta think about this. Anyway, there's several lots east of here along 64 that are all sharing access points. The state also looked at this plat and I received a comment back that there will be no direct vehicular access to lot 11. So, but yes, the state is very concerned about safety, traffic, all that. This is a town road, so the state has no authority, you know, other than on lot 11. They don't have any authority on lots 12 through 16. It's a town issue.
So a lot of townships, if you have like 4 or 5 like driveways going onto a road that they want that, of course, it is a public road now, but a lot of times they'll put restrictions on, well, it's gotta be blacktop according to our standards and that, you know. Anything been done about that?
Well, no, because this is already an existing road. If they were building this road, yes, it would have to be built to their standards with ditches and all that before the town would accept it.
But they
Mhm.
don't have to like upgrade it because there's a lot more driveways than what there was before.
I don't believe so. Mr. Stocker can maybe answer that question. I know he was at a town meeting, and I know the chairman has been involved in this, and I believe I shouldn't speak. I'd rather have Mr. Stocker do that, but I believe they got verbal, um, go ahead to construct 6 new driveways here. I don't know if those permits have been issued yet. Technically, the lots don't exist, so, but I don't know. He could perhaps speak more to the access than I could. I don't want to give you misinformation.
Name and address and then comment.
Daniel Stockert, and address is 148 Main Street, Ferryville, Wisconsin. Yes, we have talked to the town. Essentially, what their thoughts are is that we can do whatever we'd like. They don't have a road specs ordinance. They don't have any subdivision or land ordinance, and that ignorance kind of developed their no action that you saw through that email. They thought they didn't have to approve, but I could go ahead and we could proceed because of their I guess lack thereof of an ordinance of any kind. I have talked to the town, and verbally they have told me that they do plan, that is on, I don't know if it's next year's or the year after, but they are planning to improve that road. That's why that dedication that we are giving them is going to come in handy, because they plan on widening that, and that was already within their plans. So this plat wouldn't disturb that. It would be helpful.
Any other questions? Thanks. Diane?
I would move approval of the preliminary plat
We have a
as
motion to approve. Is there a second? Any further discussion on the issue? Mike?
Just to make sure, this is a situation with a preliminary plat, that if we approve it and there are no major changes made, we have to approve the final plat. Just so everybody understands that. I'm going to vote for it anyway, but that's something we didn't know at one time.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. So the plat is approved. Thanks. Thank you. Susan, you want to do your, we'll go back to 6C, I guess.
You pulling it up, Chase? Okay, great. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Happy to be with you here today to talk about your comprehensive planning and farmland preservation planning update. My name is Susan Badke, and I'm a senior planner and deputy director for the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. We are just a little bit about our organization. We are a 7-county agency created under Wisconsin state statute. So we serve, like I mentioned, 7 counties all the way west of St. Croix County, hitting Polk, Barron, Dunn, Eau Claire, and Chippewa over far east over to Clark. So that should be 7 if you followed along with me. As I mentioned, we're created under state statute, and really our statutory obligations. We collect, conduct, analyze, distribute data, provide advisory services to local governments and our counties that we serve, and we try to act as a coordinating agency amongst local governments and other state and federal agencies as well. We were established back in 1971. You've probably worked with us, heard of us in some type of capacity. Supervisor Morehouse currently sits on our commission. And Mr. Quinn did it one time as well, and maybe he'll be back. We'll see. Let's see here. So thank you, Chase. I appreciate that. Really, our service areas, I say we have 4 main buckets of service areas. So economic development, transportation planning, community planning and development, and really all of the other buckets funnel into that, right? And then conservation and mapping. There we go. So there are 9 regional planning commissions throughout the state. Most counties, but not all, are covered by a regional planning commission. So you can see there up there, number 9, we're identified as number 9. I like to think they saved the best for last, but it is in alphabetical order. So that's just a little bit about our organization. And I think you folks are probably familiar with us, but I do think it's important to just set the context and provide a little overview about us. Over the last, I don't know, maybe 6 months or so, had been working with your previous county planner, zoning administrator. And I think she had been working with you folks. Hopefully, I know I wasn't in front of you, but I think it's good that I'm in front of you today. Talking about your county comprehensive plan update, I think that has been an ongoing task at the county level for maybe a little while at least. And so the county engaged our organization to assist with that effort. So we worked to put together a scope of work for the project, and I'll walk you through that. And you folks have seen that, I believe, because you previously approved it, but I will remind you of what that project looks like and give you a quick overview. So, but what really is meant today, like I mentioned, I worked with your previous county planner, worked with your interim planner who was super helpful. We started talking about the process, and then, and now I'm happy to be working with your new county planner as well. And so I've had conversations with these folks about where we're at in the process, where we're headed, how we can move this forward in a timely manner, especially now that the decisions have been made at the county, and we can move that project forward. So real quickly, and I mean this to be a discussion, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I think it's appropriate for me to set a context of what comprehensive planning, farmland preservation planning, and just to move us into conversation. But this isn't a presentation, it's meant to be a discussion for you. So I have some facilitation slides, but if you've got any questions or thoughts along the way, feel free to chime in. A quick overview of comprehensive planning. How many of you, so again, your county comp plan document, this is it right here. This is what we are updating. This is your comp plan and your farmland preservation plan. Farmland preservation plan is integrated into the comprehensive plan. That is how required by state statute. How many of you were involved in the process back in 2009 out of curiosity? Anyone involved in that? Okay, Mr. Quinn. Well, great. Then this will be fun for all of the rest of you folks. Glad that I'm going to set a little bit of context, but overview of comprehensive planning. What is comprehensive planning? It's really working together to have a conversation as a community, as a county, looking at existing conditions and trends. What's important to the county? What do you care about looking out 20 years? What is it important that you preserve? What is it important that you protect? What maybe are you willing, what areas of the county do you want to develop in? Really identifying your vision for the future. Again, looking long range, recognizing a lot of things can come into play along the way and change that vision, but looking out 20 years, what is your future? And then how do we get there? developing a guide. What are your, policies? What are your strategies that you're going to take and undertake to help you achieve that vision? Okay. So it's a guide for future growth and local decision making. It in and of itself, a comprehensive plan is not regulation. Okay. It is a guide. It may recommend or suggest different things that feed into it that are policy driven and regulatory driven, but it in and of itself is not regulation. However, regulatory actions that you take, so rezonings, land divisions, those have to be consistent with your comprehensive plan under state statute. So it is important, very important, but it in and of itself is not regulation. Important to note, and I'll remind you this throughout the entire process. It's not my plan, right? It's not Susan's plan for Dunn County. I will be along the way providing information, working closely with your staff, right? I can already tell they're going to be great and heavily involved. But it's not my plan. It's not the Regional Planning Commission's plan. That's Dunn County's plan. And I think that's important for everyone to remember. It's your vision, your issues, and your plan recommendations. So I'll be suggesting things along the way, but it's important that you folks and the public in your towns, be engaged throughout the process because it's Dunn County's plan. I'm just going to pass out here quickly for your reading pleasure. If you want to take a look tonight, if you're having trouble falling asleep, there is a fact sheet that we've put together on comprehensive planning. It might answer some questions. If you've got some questions, take a look at it. I think it's a helpful resource. It's really geared towards our local communities, but I think that you will still find it interesting. And also then I have printed a copy of the attachment A, which I'll get to, that was included in your packet as well. Wisconsin Comprehensive Planning Law, I touched on this a little bit, but essentially, if a local unit of government, including the county, engages in any of the following actions, so zoning ordinance, subdivision regulations, official mapping, shoreland, wetland zoning, those actions have to be consistent with a comprehensive plan. And so, the comprehensive plan really becomes a prerequisite for decisions. I heard today in the analysis of the staff recommendations, it mentioned what the comp plan showed for property. So it's important that you're using that plan when you're making those decisions. And that consistency requirement encourages units of government to follow their comprehensive plan. It doesn't mean that the plan can't be amended, and we'll talk about that as we work throughout the process, but it's really meant to be your guide. You should be looking at it as you are undertaking land use decisions and regulations. Comprehensive plans under statute. So Wisconsin Statute 66.1001 is the comprehensive planning statute in Wisconsin. It requires 9 elements to be, or 9 kind of topic areas to be included in a comprehensive plan. So those are shown on the screen here. All of that really funnels in and ultimately, creates your comprehensive plan. So issues and opportunities, housing, transportation, utilities and community facilities, ag, natural, cultural resources, economic development, intergovernmental cooperation, land use, and then of course, implementation. So your action plan, what strategies, recommendations are you going to take to help achieve what you're wanting to in the next 20 years? There might be other, some communities say, sustainability or health, and we aren't deciding that today, but we'll have those conversations. Are there other, elements or chapters that you want to focus on? Those 9 elements are just what's required under state statute. State statute does not require the county or community to adopt specific policies or regulations. So that's at your discretion. Issues, recommendations, it's the county's plan, it's your issues and recommendations. One of the additional requirements under state statute is public participation plan. And I know the county had, and you folks are probably remember this, maybe in 2023, I believe. November of 2023 is what the memo is from. And that was a very comprehensive public participation plan that was put together by your planning and and zoning staff. And so the county, I believe, did adopt that for their comprehensive plan. That was prior to our engagement in the project. Okay. So our scope of work is a little more limited, based on funding, based on, discussions at the time with the county in terms of what you really wanted to include from that. So you'll see that our scope of work doesn't include every public participation item that is in this November 2023 memo. That said, if your county staff has the resources to undertake additional public participation efforts and methods in here, that fits, within to the time frame that we're looking at and things like that, we're certainly supportive of that, but just recognize that our scope of work does vary a little bit, and isn't as inclusive as what this public participation, plan included. But what we do include, public noticing, obviously open meetings. We have a variety of surveys, meetings with Dunn County, Wisconsin Towns Association unit. So I'm actually scheduled to go there January 27th, and provide them an overview on the project, simply to notify them, get some input from them, what issues, opportunities. That'll all feed back into the committee then when we officially kick off the project. Gentleman earlier mentioned meetings with zone towns, and I think that was a good point. The intent of the meetings with these zone towns is to talk about that consistency between the zoning map and the future land use map, right? So that is an additional step. The unzoned towns certainly will be included in the process, and the information under the surveys, and maybe I have another slide on this in terms of the survey methods, but a survey is planned to go out to all towns, regardless of zoning status, to get information on plans, policies, issues, opportunities. And so certainly they are part of the process. The meeting with the zone towns was an additional step to specifically undertake a detailed review of the zoning map as it relates to the preferred land use map. So again, not excluding and limiting this plan. This is a full county plan, right? Just like cities and villages, they have their own comprehensive plans. They'll be recognized in the plan because they are part of the county. But the real focus here is on the unincorporated areas of the county, and so the towns. But just recognize again, we do certainly zoning status doesn't. It's just that we're. That those meetings with zone towns was to get more detailed and look at their zoning and relationship to the land use plan. Series of focus groups meeting, and then as required by law, public hearing, 30-day notice prior to that public hearing. So several things that are included in that public participation plan as it relates to our scope of work. Real quickly, farmland preservation planning. Tend to that, and again, that's part of your plan. You have a farmland preservation plan that's in this, comprehensive land use plan document, but we'll be looking to update that, right? Helps farmers, local governments preserves farmland. It provides a tool for communities to limit the loss of productive farmland, creates income tax incentives to farmers, and really it's overseen by the Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection at the state, administered locally by county land and water conservation departments. So we'll be working closely with your land conservationists. There's a lot of different things as we sat down last week. I think our meeting, the three of us sat down to kind of strategize about this, and I think there will definitely be opportunities for efficiencies. The county, I believe, will be updating a land and water plan, and so we're already talking, how can we be efficient and thoughtful in survey questions so that we're not just collecting it for the comprehensive plan, but that it can be, incorporate other data for other useful planning in the county. Let's see here. I'm going to skip over that. Again, your plan, it was adopted in November 2009, revised in 2016. And just recognizing a plan's not a static document. So under Wisconsin law, You're required to update your plan no less than once every 10 years. Now, you undertook an amendment, you revised it in 2016, but this will be more of a comprehensive update. I suspect it will look and function very differently than what this current document will. And I'll be working closely with your staff to ensure I've already said what works, what doesn't, what do you, how, in terms of function and layout. And so I'll be working closely with them. Now for the fun part. So in front of you and included in your packet is what's showing up there is attachment A. That is part of our contract with you folks. That is our scope of work. So that's everything what we will be doing throughout the process. So we envision a 16 to 18 month process. Now we are, I know, parallel to this county comp plan update, we also are working with Chippewa County. And one of the things that Chippewa County has, indicated is that they're hoping to adopt their plan prior to the April 2026 election. And so they are hoping to have it done before April. Now that might be a little bit of a stretch, right? We're getting a little bit later start here, but we'll continue to work with your staff and see where there are some efficiencies that can be made. But 16 to 18 month process, we envision 7 planning committee working meetings. Now those working committee meetings really will need to be focused on the comprehensive plan update. Okay, you should probably expect that the comp plan discussion in and of itself will take about 2.5 hours. So it's going to require some time commitment. And I think staff will discuss with you folks how you want to handle that. One idea we've kicked around is maybe one of your 2 monthly meetings solely be reserved to that. But I'll defer that conversation to you folks to have. Like I mentioned, 4 surveys. So we plan to put together a web-based public survey that would go out to everyone who wants to complete it. A mailed farmland owner survey. So owners of farmland with 30 or more acres. We're currently strategizing what questions. We'll be engaging your staff. A mailed town survey. And again, that's going to go out to every town, regardless of zoning. Every town in Dunn County will get that survey. Again, geared at issues, opportunities, policies, plans, and really getting hopefully some good input from them. Mailed city and village survey, 6 focus groups, and then 4 zoned town meetings, each having 4 of the zone towns attending each meeting. So that's generally, if you have questions on that scope of work and that kind of the timeline, I'm happy to go through it in detail. But you can see there, we've assigned, for example, month number, right? So I haven't put anything because we haven't really officially kicked this off. Once we know, if we're going to kick it off in February, that'd be great. Then I can really start aligning months to this scope of work, and I'll present kind of a revised, more detailed timeline schedule for you. But if happy to go in more detail if you want to, but I'll keep us moving forward here just for the sake of time. What's your role, right? So what's your role? You're here, you're listening to me, but what is your role as it relates to the plan update? So you, PRD, as the county zoning agency, may direct the preparation of a county development plan. That's essentially a comp plan under Wisconsin statute. Following the public hearing, you adopt and amend by resolution, and then the county board approves by ordinance. So you are a vital, critical part. You are going to be essentially preparing and recommending the plan to the county board. Your role, again, I mentioned 7 to 8 meetings, committee meetings. Expect each meeting to last a minimum of 2.5 hours, and that's really focused and working on the comprehensive plan. Provide information and direction on the plan. Review materials, provide input, help promote the planning effort. So spread the news to your friends, to your neighbors, to community groups, to towns, cities, villages, and help promote the surveys. So, help engage citizens in the update. I think it's important. The more transparent, the more information you can receive from the public, the better the plan. And again, it's going to hopefully all feed into a number of the county's initiatives, right? We're trying to be coordinated in our efforts and be as efficient as we can with getting information from the public, because sometimes it can be information or survey overload, and we don't want to do that as we move forward. We are putting together, I'm not handing this out yet because it's not finalized, but one tool that we are preparing for you is kind of a fact sheet on the comprehensive plan update process. And I think that'll be helpful for you folks as you're talking to other people throughout the county, to share that with them. It's just a handy tool. First 2 pages will really be on comprehensive planning. What is a comprehensive plan? More kind of educational. What's the process? Maybe some timelines. How did they get more information? And then pages 2 and 3 will be different data. So data trends, looking at population, 2000 to 2020, some housing information, commuting patterns, employment information, natural resources, which is of course very important and a critical topic in Dunn County. That will also be on there. So a little fact sheet. I'm working with your staff, reviewing this, getting information. I think staff plans to put together like a project website, so we'll be able to reference that on here. And it should be a useful reference for you and for the county. So with that, that's kind of a quick overview. I hope I didn't take up too much of your time, but kind of an introduction to myself. I look forward, I know I know a few of you, and I look forward to working clearly with the rest of you. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I guess at this point, I'll turn it over to county staff. If you want to, we'd facilitate conversation amongst how you would like to move forward with the planning effort. Or I'll turn it back over to the chair and he can.
Well, let's just start with, are there any questions of
Sure.
Susan in the committee?
I don't have any questions, but you probably all know that I know Susan, I know a regional plan. I've worked with them. I was reasonably insistent that we retain regional planning to work with us on this, because I think this is a really significant and important effort that we need to take really seriously. And so I'm excited to be working with Susan, and I hope our staff is equally excited, because this is an important task for us. So just my 2 cents.
Just a question. I believe City of Menominee is doing a comp plan revision pretty soon. I was wondering if they were working with you on that, or would they be working with some other entity?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with their comp plan update.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So, Tammy, do you have any thoughts you want to share? You've been working on this.
Well, I'm excited to meet, Susan and I just met last week. It's just kind of an information data dump. I feel like getting caught up on everything. A couple quick thoughts as far as the public participation plan that was adopted by the county board. And Susan alluded to this, is that it was a pretty aggressive plan. And then we also have a scope of work with regional planning. So what I envision is just this really solid partnership where they're going to keep us on track. And this frees staff to do those other items. I would, our intent at the time was to cater to the township. So we would, fully, our intent was to attend those meetings, zoned and unzoned, even the villages, the city, it needs to be, a solid effort from our staff to build those relationships. So I'm thankful that regional planning is going to keep their scope focused, and then that gives us the opportunity to address exactly what Tony, brought up, and that we will give that fair attention to everyone. So just, try to quickly touch that base. As far as Susan's kind of direction and next steps, she brought up about the committee having kind of a work session. So, and Tom and Chase, also have kind of their standing agenda items, the routine with the committee. So I don't know, is it the tolerance to the committee that we have, say either it's the first meeting of the month or the second one, that kind of is not necessarily a standing rule, but maybe just a guideline that we
let's
try to
do-
shoot for? Okay.
But the question is, which one makes the most sense? And that's kind of a staff question, because you've got reports and stuff. So,
Yeah, right now, all of our staff reports come to the second meeting of the month. you know.
So is it,
So first,
can we be okay with the first?
yeah,
That sounds great.
And with that said, do we want to shoot for the first meeting in February as a kickoff? Should we
Yeah.
just
Yes.
push us
We
and
need to
get that
get
We
done?
need to get going.
Okay, so we will plan that. I would like, for us then responsibility of the counties to get that website and do some outreach also so that we actually get energy behind this for this kickoff. And make sure that that first meeting, and again, Susan's gonna say 2.5. I'm gonna push us to try to be at 2 hours that, respect everyone's time, but also give, enough time to the topic so that we get a really good quality plan going forward. So,
So I think that we would expect that that schedule would allow us to continue to have input from local officials in town and stuff on an ongoing basis. So that'd be great.
may I thank you, Mr. Chairman? This is the question for staff. And is there anything, I mean, you already have probably way too much to do. So this is an overlay and it concerns me. Is there anything that we can do to support the staff to help you through this process so that it actually is a good process and not something that is, I mean, I don't think it's going to be an afterthought, but you know what I mean? I mean, that you are able to devote really good, serious professional attention to. Can we help?
make 30-hour, days or something. It's not 24 hours and we have 30 hours. Okay.
We'll certainly do that, Tammy.
I appreciate that. And maybe that's something we think as a placeholder for our kickoff. Chase and I are going to be meeting, tomorrow, and what I'm gonna go with is like the stakeholder mapping. For one, that we know that this housing work group exists in different forms. I haven't been directly involved with that, but I guess that's where we're going to look for guidance from the committee to say, hey, we know this person, this would be great for this activity. And then maybe
can help
that's
you
then
with
we
that one.
work with. So I would envision that that's what kind of that work, our kickoff meeting. Hopefully Will is, Chase and I can put this framework together. Again, incorporating that land and water plan, kind of keeping that in the back of our mind also. Some of the work that's going on with the Red Cedar watershed. A lot of these efforts are out there. So how do we capitalize on the who's who of our community? And that's where I think the committee is going to, be very valuable to us in this process. So if that, answers your question,
Well,
or
just keep asking if
Okay.
there are things that we can provide.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Thanks for coming today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your time and I look forward to being back here. It looks like February 5th.
My
good.
birthday.
Yeah. We'll celebrate, Diane.
Oh. Thank you. So the one,
No
I
birthday.
think the last item we have on here is undealt with is 7B, the land spreading of human septic. And the reason I put this on here was we've talked about this several times over the past few years. And then we had a presentation from Neil Cook a few months ago. And there's been a lot of press about this in the press. And I don't want it to just, I want to know I want to have the committee talk about what, if anything, we want to do about this, or how we as a committee want to handle, if we want to handle this issue. And so how do we want to do it? And Tom was good enough to put in our packets this month a copy of the legislative agenda, which includes resolutions from this committee and then a joint resolution on information about septic sites, access to information about septic spreading sites, which was our initial concern, I think. And then also a joint resolution from this committee and health regarding water
Right.
quality testing and resources. And I don't have an answer to this, but I hate to just let this, if that's sufficient for what we want to do, that's fine. If we feel like we want to do something else, we certainly have plenty of things on our table, so I'm not necessarily suggesting it, but one thought is that we may want to think about how could we raise this issue within the Wisconsin Counties Association so that, and how maybe bring these two issues together in some ways too. So, I mean, and I think that there's a time limit on resolutions to the state convention, which is in September, October. I forget when that is. I think it's and we can check that. We can check that out, but we could work to have the board submit a resolution to the Wisconsin Counties Association at their convention or to their committees that deal with, special committees that deal with these issues and try and raise the issue, visibility of the issue within the counties association. Or I'm open, if what we have done now is sufficient for now, I'm fine with that too. I just want to make sure the committee has some opportunity to share thoughts about that.
When we talked about this with Neil Cook, we had a couple of people from the DNR on screen. They were going to get us some data. Did they? Are they?
Yes, I don't have it
Okay, that's
readily
fine.
available right now.
That's fine. It's fine, but I thought we did ask for that, whether it's valid or useful or not.
I do have further comments if
Sure.
you'd like. So the topic has been brought up as well in through Health Done Right in the HEAT Committee, Healthy Environment Action Team. And it has been discussed specifically related to the next steps for the Community Health Improvement Plan and some of the work that's been doing to look at those goals for that effort within the county. That HEAT specifically has an interest in looking further into this. And I think part of the discussion was understanding what I guess the findings of fact are regarding septage, numbers, permitted sites, its use. A lot of the things that our partner agencies with DNR has provided or can provide more on. And at this point, it's my understanding that HEAT will look into this and maybe help understand or build a shared understanding of what that resource concern is and the data around it. And then bring that back as part of a discussion to help feed what you're asking. Should HEAT take a different direction and maybe not act in a timely fashion with what your desire is, we can bring that information directly to the committee. Just on the side as well, regarding the comp plan, this type of topic is certainly something relevant that we believe is relevant to the comp plan as well. So timeliness for resolutions to the state, certainly we can move as fast as you want us to, or as we can. But my caution is it might be a broader debate and discussion than maybe what certain legislative sessions might allow. But
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't expect any quick action, but you answered you provided an answer to me about next steps, I guess. It's not falling off the radar.
Mm-mm.
And it is a good role for HEAT to have to do that. I agree. Any other questions? Okay. Then we're adjourned. Next meeting is 5th, I think. Yeah.
And I will be remote.
I could.
Yeah.
One more announcement. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just say, please don't run off and check out posters. I got
Oh, right.
directions
We have
for
the-
you to judge conservation posters.
So we're not really adjourned. Sorry. Thanks.
I wasn't obnoxious. I can't insist. That is true.